Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, Text 2. Vishamrinala Davalam Mehantameva Bibyatam Pepamanam Padekena Siddhantam Shuddhatadikam Vishamrinala Davalam Mehantameva Bibyatam Pepamanam Padekena Siddhantam Shuddhatadikam Vishamrinala Davalam Mehantam Eva Bibyatam Vepamanam Padekena Siddhantam Sudratadikam Vishammanala Davalam Vivakam Vamanam Padekena Siddhantam Sudratadikam Risham, the bull. Rinala Davalam, as white as a white lotus. Mehantam, urinating. Iva, as if. Vibhyantam, being too afraid. Vepamanam, trembling. Vada ekena, standing on only one leg. Siddhantam, terrified. Sudra Tadit, being beaten by a Sudra. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The bull was as white as a white lotus flower. He was terrified of the Sudra who was beating him, and he was so afraid that he was standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. Purport. The next symptom of the age of Kali is that the principles of religion, which are all spotlessly white, like the white lotus flower, will be attacked by the uncultured Sudra population of the age. They may be descendants of Brahmana or Kshatriya forefathers, but in the age of Kali, for want of sufficient education and culture of Vedic wisdom, such a Shudra-like population will defy the principles of religion, and persons who are religiously endowed will be terrified by such men. They will declare themselves adherents of no religious principles, and many isms and cults will spring up in Kali Yuga only to kill the spotless bull of religion. The state will be declared to be secular or without any particular principle of religion, and as a result, there will be total indifference to the principles of religion. The citizens will be free to act as they like, without respect for sadhu, shastra, and guru. The bull standing on one leg indicates that the principle of religion is gradually diminishing. Even the fragmental existence of religious principles will be embarrassed by so many obstacles as if in the trembling condition of falling down at any time. Om Jnanantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalokaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Chatrayane Shesha Srimivadi Pasha Tateshatayane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Rama. Thank you, devotees, for being here and giving me the chance to speak on the Bhagavatam, even though I'm not very qualified and I'm still learning how to understand the Shastra and be able to, let alone talk about it and speak it in front of individuals, especially great souls such as yourself. So to give kind of a spoiler a little bit towards the later sections of this chapter, this Sudra that Maharaj Parikshit notices, he immediately surrenders to Maharaj Parikshit, and Maharaj Parikshit shows him mercy. But the actual Sudra, he asked, where exactly should I reside? And Maharaj Parikshit initially gives 4 places. They are places where there's, I believe, prostitution, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. But then the problem with that, after the Sudra left and was trying to find a place for where these reside, he found nowhere, because at that time Maharaj Parikshit had maintained a kingdom and society where there was none of these principles were found. So then once the Sudra came back to the king and told him that there's nowhere else to be, he said that you can stay where there's gold and there's wealth. And from there, as Prabhupada mentions in the age of Kali, from that place on, all the principles of religion spread, as we've seen today. And I wanted to go to the text 38 of the Bhagavatam, just to read the translation of that. So let me get to that. Sorry. Sudha Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, thus being petitioned by the personality Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, intoxication, gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. So I wanted to talk about where, like currently in the modern age, examples of how, as Prabhupada mentions, people have an indifference to the principles of religion, and essentially they how these different aspects that we discussed are prevalent, like pride, prostitution, intoxication, falsehood, how this is found in modern society. and then examples of how in prior ages it was these weren't the case, these weren't glorified, and the principles of religion instead were glorified. So one example of pride that I was thinking about in my personal life. So I've been working in a corporate job for like 2.5 years at a bank, and it's very cutthroat, the culture, and a lot of times being prideful of your own work, not admitting fault, not learning from, not showing humility is actually seen as a negative aspect, where it really results is prioritized over character a lot of times, and yeah, and also in our leadership and government as well. I was just searching online. I found out that our current um, president, for example, has during his previous presidency lied 30,000 30,573 times. So that's an average of 21 times per day. Yeah, per day. Yeah. So a lot of these falsehoods, all these negative four principles are in religion are a lot of times ignored and even glorified in that way. But examples in previous ages where this wasn't the case, one clear example is Hanuman. Hanuman is an individual that got many boons when he was a child, and he's seemingly stronger, powerful. He can fly, um, more has more powers than Lord Ram, who took the form of a human being. Yet he always had the mood of humility and service to Lord Ram. And one example that I was thinking about is the situation when Lord Ram and his various paraphernalia were at the ocean that was separating them from reaching Lanka. And Lord Hanuman took the service of going to Lanka to go see Sita Devi. And Lord Ram gave him a ring to give to her if he ends up finding her. And so he takes that service and uses his flying capabilities to go across the ocean to Lanka itself and sees her and gives her information about how Lord Ram was looking for her, and she's very pleased from that. And then after that, he gets the idea of exploring Lanka and seeing how much capability the city has. And so he has a little bit of fun. Just to summarize, he burns the entire city. He causes really great disturbances to Ravana and his various generals. But then after doing all that, he realizes that his main mission in the first place was to go and find Lord Sita Devi and report back to Ram. And so once he realized that, he immediately gets back to his service attitude and goes immediately back to Lord Ram and conveys the message. So it just shows that despite having so much power and capability, seemingly more than the Lord himself, when he was here as taking the form as a human, he always had the mood of service. Another example is Lord Ambarish. He is glorified for the lack of pride. So the pastime with him is he was obviously king of the world, and he was observing Ekadashi at the time, and he was basically fasting without water and food for a very long time. And at a certain point, his fast ended. And but at that time, Durasha Muni arrived at the scene, and he wanted to. Ambrish Maharaj wanted to obviously break his fast, but he first took the precedent of trying to serve Durasha Muni, but at the same time he couldn't do it. So he consulted with his sages, and they said that it's okay to drink water. Once Durasha Muni found out, he got very angry, and I believe he summoned a demon from the hair, and tried to chastise Ambarish Maharaj. But one of the key principles is that Ambarish Maharaj was never affected by that. he didn't counteract the negative remarks by the Rashamuni. Instead, the Lord actually convened, Lord Vishnu convened and sent the Sudarshan Chakra to kill the demon that was made by Rashamuni, and the Chakra was actually harassing the Rashamuni throughout the material world. I think first the Rashamuni went to Lord Brahma, I believe, to take shelter, but Lord Brahma couldn't do anything. Then he went to Lord Shiva, same issue. Lord Shiva couldn't do anything. And then he even went to the spiritual world, where he tried to take shelter of, I believe it was Narada Muni, or no, Lord Narayan, I believe. Sorry, but Lord Narayan couldn't do anything, and he said that the best way is the most important, the thing that you can do is going back to Ambrish Maharaj and getting his mercy and forgiveness. And so he did. And yeah, again, Ambrish Maharaj was very kind that he didn't see that as an offense, and he ended up offering prasadam to the Rasamuni, and everything was fine. But so the main point with this is the lack of pride. He was the emperor of the world. A sage came and was saying many negative remarks, yet he didn't counteract that, and he was very humble throughout the whole situation that has occurred. A third example of lack of pride, how that's glorified, is the pastime of right after this is in the Mahabharata, after the 12-year incognito that the Pandavas exhibited, and at that time, I believe they were trying to get some land that they can administer as Kshatriyas from the Kuru dynasty, but Duryodhana would not relent. He would not give even, I believe, 5 villages to each one. So as last resort, Maharaj Yudhishthira asked Lord Krishna if he can go to Hastinapur to try to create some peace, establish some peace to avoid war as a last resort. And so Krishna went, and once the administrators of the Kuru dynasty found out that Krishna is going to Hastinapur, a lot of them were sending various invitations for Krishna to stay in various palaces and so forth with them, but he ignored all of them, even the one from Duryodhana himself, and decided to stay with Vidura instead, even though Vidura isn't on a higher social standing than all the others, which shows that Krishna values more devotion over and love over social standing and so forth. And so yeah, once he chose to go to Vidura's place, I think I mentioned this before as well. Vidura wasn't there; his wife was there, and once she saw Krishna, she was in a full devotional mood, and Krishna, I think, Krishna came to her and said that he was hungry, and in that devotional mood, she tried to look for something to offer him, and she saw some bananas, and so she took the bananas and she came to him, and then in her devotional ecstasy, she offered him the peel instead of the actual banana, and that really delighted Krishna, and he was taking that peel in ecstasy. And at that time, I believe Vidura arrived, and he saw what was happening, and he kind of stopped that and gave Krishna instead of the actual banana itself. And that didn't really satisfy Krishna, and he explained how devotion and love is what he really eats and takes. And yeah, this pastime really shows how Krishna himself values individuals with lack of pride and so forth. He could have gone to Duryodhana's palace, and resided there, but Duryodhana had qualities of pride and so forth, which deterred Krishna from even wanting to go there. So those are some examples of how pridelessness is glorified in the previous ages. The next principle of irreligion that's prominent in this world now is unfortunately prostitution. At least in this country, it's illegal, but it's subtly found indirectly in different ways. I believe in the Vedas, like prostitution is also seen as individuals who get into affairs and any illicit connection, basically, outside of what's like considered shastric, which is to get married and to have only to conceive. Anything outside of this is actually considered prostitution. I was just searching online, like the average age an individual engages in illicit connections is 17. Also, one of the unfortunate issues we have in this world is illicit videos. There's around, I was just searching some statistics. There's around a lot, I think out of the top 10 sites, I think the seventh one is websites pertaining to this. And I think this past month, there was 5.3 billion views of these kind of content. And I was just thinking that in the previous ages, like before, just 50, 100 years ago, before this was a thing, even kings did not have the capability and capacity to see this much illicit connections, because it's accessible. You can just go and see millions of individuals engaging in so much affairs, and that not even a king in the previous ages would have that capability to do so. So it's so easy to fall prey to this and get really entrapped, more than I would say in the past, because it's so accessible and so forth. Also, I was just thinking dating culture as well. Like, unfortunately, that's a common thing now. We have these dating apps and so forth, and they're very costly. You have to spend so much time. I was just reading online that people spend so much money and time to go on many, many dates. I think you were mentioning before, and Michelle Pro was mentioning an example of an individual who went on hundreds of dates until they found one person. That costs money, time. I'm sure like illicit affairs occurred and so forth. So, and a lot of times, I think Vijay Prabhu also mentioned, even after hundreds of dates, you get with someone and then you eventually end up getting married with that person, there's a 50% chance that relationship will fail. For a second marriage, it's 60% chance it will fail. For a third marriage, is I think 80% chance. So it may not be prostitution legally happening, but indirectly it is, and the consequences are the same. In contrast to that, in the Vedic culture, obviously, cleanliness and celibacy is glorified. And I was just, some examples are just many of the sages that we talk about, like Narada Muni, Bhishma, and so forth. Yeah, so the third principle of irreligion that is prominent in this society now is also intoxication. Intoxication is something that has become a culture where if you don't engage in that casually or socially, you're considered weird and out of place. I was just reading some statistics that I found, which said that around 50% of college students drink alcohol. So from the ages of 18 to 25, around 50-50 students engage in drinking alcohol. I also found out that it seems like more women than men engage in that. Around 48% of women drink alcohol often, and 45 compared to 45% of men. 30% of college students engage in something called binge drinking, which is drinking more than five or more drinks at an occasion at a given time. So around 30% of students engage in that, and I believe 8% are like chronic drinkers. So it's a very common activity. At least I've seen in my family. It's not even just college students, even people that are older. It's like a casual, fun thing to do that is like permeated in our culture. Yeah, and that's obviously in contrast with what we see in the Vedic era. And we talked about falsehoods as well, how you can speak many, many lies and get away with it. Even the president is a perfect example of that. Okay, so I think Prabhupada also mentioned that even the fragmental existence of religious principles will be embarrassed by so many obstacles, as if tremble in the condition of falling at any time. And he also says that persons who are religiously endowed will be terrified by such men. So when I was thinking about it, I was just thinking how the entire environment, as we were discussing, is full and permeated with a bunch of irreligious principles that bind us. So at every step, it's kind of like eggshells, where we as practicing sadhakas have to be careful. Because as Prabhupada mentions, association is extremely important. If you don't have good association, even if you have a good heart and want to extricate yourself from material bondage, since there's so much negative energy that and practices that might surround someone, they will just fall down. And that's why devotee association is extremely important. So what do we do? So we have a really bad environment right now in Kali Yuga compared to previous ages. So what is the do we have any hope? And the hope is really the holy name. I was just thinking of some examples of why the holy name is so important. One example I was just thinking is Haridas Thakur, and the pastime that he had while chanting the holy name. When he was, I think the king at the time was Ramachandra Khan. He was envious of devotees and he wanted to dishonor Haridas Thakur by trying to ruin his character by sending in a prostitute. And so he employed a prostitute to try to get Haridas Thakur to engage in an illicit behavior and ultimately dishonor his character. But at the time, Haridas Thakur, what his business was, he'd have a tulsi tree at his cottage that he would worship every day, and he would chant a quota of 300,000 names of Krishna, and that was his business every day. And once the prostitute came to him, she first offered obeisances to the tulsi plant and approached Haridas Thakur and really begged and implored him to satisfy her mind of engaging in an illicit affair with him. And Haridas Thakur, instead of saying no, he said that he would absolutely try to satisfy her until only after he's completed his quota of 300,000 names, and told her she can wait and listen while he's done. And so she did. She was very happy and she waited and waited. But the 300,000 names unfortunately took the whole entire day. And so she went back to Ramachandra Khan and explained to him that what has occurred and that she'll definitely be able to satisfy the desire that she had the next day. And so she went back to the next day, and same thing happened again. He had 300,000 names that he had to chant, and she started chanting, "O Lord Hari, O Lord my Lord Hari," actually as he was chanting Hare Krishna. And then unfortunately, though, Haridas Thakur mentioned at the end that he had a quota of chanting 10 million names per month, and it was, I think, the end of the month at the time, and he failed. So he's starting over again for the next month, and told her to come back again the next day. And so she comes back the third day. By that time, since she was around an advanced soul that was chanting Hare Krishna, that purified her heart. So despite the fact that she had a negative intention and her heart was contaminated, just by being around a great soul who was chanting the holy name, that purified her. So it became a medicine. And I was just seeing that this verse mentions the white lotus flower, and the holy name can also be attributed to that, because a lotus flower can, live in a swamp, and a swamp can be full of contamination and various kinds of irreligion, but the white lotus flower can still sustain and grow. And that's the power of the holy name. It does not get affected by all these negative activities that occur in this world. And so, then she surrenders to Haridas Thakur and makes a vow to chant 300,000 names. She accepts him as her spiritual master, shaves her head, and many sadhus, I believe, come later on at the time to get her blessings, because she transforms into a wonderful devotee of the Lord. Another example of the power of the holy name in this modern age is Jagai and Madai. They were, as Prabhupada mentions, let me try to read that. They were also descendants of Brahmana forefathers. Their parents were Brahmanas, and they were well respected. They had a lot of money and wealth, and they had a good upbringing, but they did not take that practice seriously, and they ended up degrading to drinking alcohol, eating meat, stealing, I think even killing as well. And at that time, Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur were deputed by Lord Chaitanya to spread the holy name and to preach. And so they would go every day together as a team to various villages to spread the holy name and preach. And they happened to come across Jagai and Madai. And before they were actually approached them, a lot of villagers warned them that these two personality individuals are very bad and they would never, they would cause harm and so forth. But I believe once Lord Nityananda heard that, he said, "These candidates aren't these candidates for the Lord's mercy? Um, we will preach to them about the chanting of the holy name." So he saw those as perfect candidates for the Lord's mercy because they were exhibiting all these qualities of religion that we just discussed about. And he saw in his vision, he saw them as perfect candidates to purify through the holy name. And so despite the warnings, both of them approached Jagai and Madai, and um, it didn't go well the first time they were with them. They approached them. Both of them decided to run away because Jagai and Madai weren't receiving what they're preaching well. And then I believe, and then they conveyed Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur conveyed their report to Lord Chaitanya about what happened. And Lord Chaitanya was very pleased that Lord Nityananda tried to preach to these fallen souls. And then later on another evening, Lord Nityananda happened to come across these individuals, and he tried again to preach to them. And unfortunately, Jagai struck Lord Nityananda on the head with the rock, and or pot, I believe. Sorry. And after doing so, Lord Nityananda was not affected by that. He continued to pray for Lord to them and pleaded them to chant the holy name. And Madai saw that, and he was a bit more soft-hearted, and he saw what was going on, and he was trying to basically was stopping Jagai from continuing.
The other way. Mada is the one that hit Jagai.
Sorry, yeah, sure, sorry. Jagai stopped, yes. Yeah, Jagai stopped him and was pleading him to stop because he was noticing how Lord Chaitanya was praying to them and that this was a genuine sadhu. And once some of the Lord Chaitanya's followers, they saw what was going on and they went to Lord Chaitanya to let them know what has happened. Lord Chaitanya got very upset, very angry, and he actually sent the Sudarshan Chakra. He went out of character because the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya is to not destroy the sinners, but to deliver them. And so he sends the Sudarshan Chakra to annihilate them both. And at that time, Lord Nityananda stopped Lord Chaitanya and said that this is not what your incarnation is for. It's to deliver individuals like these two. And so Lord Chaitanya stopped. And so then Lord Chaitanya first, he quickly was pleased with Jagai because he stopped Madai from his attacking Lord. He stopped the continuing that attack that Madai was doing. So he was quickly very pleased and happy that he stopped that behavior. But for the other individual, he was not, and he asked him to first get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and once he went to Lord Nityananda and got that mercy from him, then he was delivered as well. And both of them became very great Vaishnavas. So this shows that being around getting the mercy of pure souls and chanting the holy name can eventually even change a person's life and remove all these anarthas. Other than that, outside of these two examples, I was also thinking about Ajamil and how I know this is a different age, but it shows how he's an example that shows how chanting the holy name unknowingly can also deliver someone even after engaging in so much anarthas where he was destined actually to end up going to the hellish planets for his behavior. Regardless of that, because at the end of his life he chanted the holy name of Narayan, which was his 10th son's name. He had a lot of affection for that son, So therefore, at the time of death, when he was leaving the world, he was thinking about him, meditating, and saying his name. And the Yamadutas did come, but they ended up being stopped by the Vishnudutas, who explained that when the holy name is mentioned, I forget who specifically said, but when the holy name is mentioned, is said, uttered once, that individual who uttered that name has no the Yamaraj has no jurisdiction over them. And they were bewildered, but ultimately they had to let go of Ajamil. And Ajamil was witnessing this conversation. He was so grateful that the Lord gave him a second chance. And yeah, so once he came back to Earth, he ended up renouncing his the illicit affair connection that he had with this prostitute, and focused on his sadhana, and ended up getting delivered in that way. I was also, this is another example I should probably mention earlier about Prahlad Maharaj as well. He's an example of a individual that exhibited pridelessness and really took shelter of the holy name. He underwent so many austerities of being thrown off a cliff, trampled by elephants. He was also poisoned, poisonous attempt, burned in fire, and so forth. All these were his father was putting on him. But he took shelter of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu protected him in all cases, and he's glorified by so many devotees around the world for that. So that's just an example of when someone takes shelter of the principles of religion of Krishna, he is protected. So that's all I had for this report. Were there any questions, especially any advice or corrections?
Maybe one thing that would have been nice was if you could go deeper into each pastime. That would be nice.
Any questions in the or comments in the online?
Hare Krishna. Just one quick comment.
Oh yes.
Yes. Thank you for class. Sorry I was a little late, but I liked how you were just providing real world examples and providing some data as well. I feel like it makes it a little bit more applicable, especially with at least, for example, use the numbers with the illicit videos online, some 5 billion views or something like that. I mean, I thought it made your presentation a little bit more powerful. Hare Krishna. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Who is it?
Tim Prabhu.